Ladies and gents, welcome back. Google is now joining the fight with Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, against the Canadian federal government. That's right. With the passage of Bill C-18, the bill is going to require these companies to pay every time somebody shares a link or a link appears on their platforms for Canadian news media. In response to that, they just decided they're going to ban the news websites from their platforms. And you can't make this up. This is the biggest blunder, backfire that we've seen yet from the Trudeau government. This story brought to us by Post Millennial. Google to remove Canadian news stories after Trudeau's Online News Act would require platforms to pay for links. And this is so funny because this is the cart before the horse. I've been talking about this for weeks, months actually, how the Liberal government has put this implementation in place. And in fact, this is a really good example of how the Liberal government just do not understand how companies and people react and change their behavior based on regulation in marketplace. In fact, this could be a great illustration of how the government has little knowledge when it comes to economies and how this works and why we're in the economic debacle that we're in as a nation right now. Anyway, we're going to be talking about this and more other stories actually tonight in tonight's live stream. Actually, I'll be joined by Rob Primo this evening. So if you want to tune into that at 9:30 Eastern time, we'll be talking about this and other stories, mainly the story that he's been involved in. And that's what he called up the Toronto police to ask about indecent exposure when it comes to pride and otherwise. And he was told that, well, they kind of turn a blind eye. The story was picked up by many news media outlets in the United States across North America this today and yesterday. So check that out this evening. We'll be doing that live. But getting on with this story, on Thursday, Google announced that in response to the Trudeau Liberals' Online News Act, Bill C-18, it would be removing links to Canadian news from a number of key places on the world's most popular search engine. Unreal. When the new law comes into effect, those looking for news from Canadian news publishers will no longer be able to find such content in Google's search, news, or discoverable tabs. Now, this is something that's really going to affect the major players in news, and this is what I've been alluding to, is going to be a big backfire on their the Liberals' push to propagandize the people here, because in the bill they've also exempted many of the independent news medias, people like myself who just talk about news subjects. I'm not an official news source for under the eyes of the government, so my links wouldn't be levied. I wouldn't make any money from it. Many news, independent news sources wouldn't be making any money from it, so they probably won't be affected by this. In fact, it'll just be the big players that the government has been paying indirectly or directly to propagandize the people. They're going to be hit the hardest. In fact, just banned outright from viewership, and I would say a majority of viewership in Canada. And this is just absolutely hilarious. Bill C-18 becomes law and remains unworkable, Google said in a statement. Sounds very familiar to what Meta said just last week. Unworkable. The government has not given us reason to believe that the regulatory process will be able to resolve structural issues with the legislation. As a result, we have informed the government that we have made the difficult decision. It's not you, it's us. We made the difficult decision that when the law takes effect, we will be removing links to Canadian news from our search. News and Discover products will no longer be able to operate on Google News Showcase in Canada. And this is really funny because, well, not only did Facebook put this out just last week, which I've been reporting on, and well, Facebook saying that they'll be blocking news in for Canadians in response to Liberal Bill C-18, but just a little while ago, Pablo Rodriguez, in an article talking to the CTV News, he was talking to them about how they're trying to revamp the way CBC makes money in this new modern era, and trying to make it less reliant on advertisement. And one of the parts in this that really cracked me up was him counting his chickens before they hatched. Here he is talking about, Rodriguez said the CBC would financially benefit from the passage of the Online News Act, also known as Bill C-18. The bill would require tech giants to pay Canadian companies for linking or to otherwise repurposing their content online. The Parliamentary Budget Officer released a report last year that shows news businesses are expected to receive over $300 million annually from digital platforms when the online news bill becomes law. To which I was reporting at the time, there's no way they're going to just give away $300 million to these news agencies. That's not going to happen. But they actually believe this. Rodriguez saying, CBC and other institutions will benefit from C-18 eventually, so there's something there. Absolutely not. Even in fact, on this story today, the ads for other stories available on the website for CTV are restricting news links to Canadian users remains on the table. Google opposes C-18. Meta has team working to block news on Facebook, Instagram from Canadian users. Well, this is where it really has backfired on them tremendously. It's amazing. The company went on to state that it was concerned that the new law would make it harder for Canadians to find news online, make it harder for journalists to reach their audiences, and reduce valuable free web traffic to Canadian publishers. In fact, I would say that this really, what it does is it frees up a lot of independent media to go ahead and publish their stuff on these social media and on Google and be recommended to the Canadian people, because news won't otherwise be able to be seen, because those news agencies that are the top brass in Canada, the ones that are the official sources, won't be visible. In fact, it'll only be independent news publishers. In fact, I think this would be a really good opportunity for journalists out there to break away from the big publishers and be able to break those chains, become independents on their own, and then not have to rely on the social pressures within the organization, which we have seen through the COVID pandemic in particular, for sure. The social pressures that are put down on these journalists to report in a particular way. I think a lot of that will be lifted, and they'll be able to reach people on their own platforms and going independent, and possibly have their own revenue streams and be able to make a living without these big conglomerates and these big government-funded news agencies themselves. I think this is actually a really, really good opportunity in Canada to take full advantage. And then hopefully by the time they remove Bill C-18, because this is ultimately where it's going to go, they're going to have to renege on it and pass a bill removing the bill. By the time that goes through, we may have already completely revolutionized the news industry here in Canada, and this is where I think that this is definitely an opportunity less than less than a boon on news and media, which a lot of the mainstream press outlets are trying to portray this as. And speaking of mainstream news outlets, this is going everywhere. Victoria News is reporting on it, but not just them. Who's this? NBC News is reporting on it, and they want you to stop using ad blockers. Google set to remove news links in Canada over online news law. Japan Today, this is going international. ABC News reporting on it. We have, what is it? The Financial Post is reporting on this. So many people reporting on this today. Google removes news links in Canada over law paying publishers. This is China Daily. Oh God, where is this going? It's all over the place. News articles, even the BBC reporting on this, and hey, even the ones banned outright from social media platforms and from Google itself. CBC News. reporting in darkness about the thing that is going to be having them removed from online activity moving forward. Anyway, I think I'm laughing about this because I think it's such an amazing backfire that was if you have any knowledge of how things work in an economy and how people's incentives, it's a praxeological approach here. Praxeology being the logic of human action, the logic of people actually acting in a marketplace. When something is regulated, well, sometimes people will change their behavior if it's going to cost them in the circumstances because of the regulation. You change the parameters and people change their behavior. And this is a clear example of that in particular, and a big backfire for Trudeau and the Liberals in this case. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of how this is going to play out. Are they going to remove Bill C-18 because of this? Because it's completely unworkable? Or they just renege on this one and come back with some other zombie of a piece of legislation trying to regulate what we get to see here in Canada under the guise of news, and this is where we're at. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you tonight on the live stream, live with Rob Primo and other guests. We'll see you then. Keep on trucking.